Okay, let's get started. So we have people still joining, but we're over 50, which, I mean, thank you for coming. That's absolutely amazing to see everyone here. So this is our webinar, as you can see on the screen, about off-grid solar repair in Africa. And the main message here we want to share with you is we want to reposition repair the e-waste burden from exactly that, from a burden to an opportunity. And we just recently launched our off-grid solar repair in Africa white paper. I'm sure everyone here on the call has read it from cover to cover. If you have not, we are going to have a whistle-stop tour of what we've been up to the last couple of years. And it's not to pat ourselves on the back and really just show what we've been up to. This is an invitation. Of course, the e-waste issue is much larger than just SolarAid, as well as the University of New South Wales and CLASP, who we have on the call. So this is, yes, we want to show where we think we have some fantastic evidence, some potential blueprints for how we can tackle this together moving forward. But we want this to be the start of the conversation as we go into the next phase of this program and see how we can perhaps even come back a year from today and see how the opportunity has been grasped with both hands by us as a sector. So before we do jump into the presentation, I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous. First, from my SolarAid colleagues who have delivered a phenomenal program the last 2 years on repair in Zambia. Then to the University of New South Wales, Paul and Chanel are on the call with us. You'll be hearing from Paul. They have been with us every step of the way to really unearth these actionable insights and this evidence that we will be sharing, presenting, and using to tackle the e-waste problem and the issue of repair moving forward. The funders of the first two phases, FCDO and USAID through CLASP, GIZ in this last phase, and the peer reviewers of this white paper from CLASP, Gogler, Energy Savings Trust, and the Technical University of Denmark. So it's been a real group effort, and after today, we want to make this an even larger group effort with you, the off-grid energy sector. So let's get started. So I will just kick us off with a quick understanding of why we're here. But the housekeeping I've promised to give before that is I don't think you can turn your mics on, but please don't try just in case you can. I've already said, but some might have just joined, this session is being recorded, but the recording will focus on the speakers. So even if you have your video on, you shouldn't be captured, but feel free to turn the video off. Be as comfortable as you want to be. We won't be able to see you. And please feel free to put any questions you have into the chat box. We will have a session at the end to go through the questions, and we will be engaging and undertaking a lot of stakeholder conversations after this, so there is plenty of time to ask questions. And this won't be a webinar that is lengthy, that will go past the promised allotted time, because we want to give you the highlights, the key insights, as we say, to start this conversation, rather than just speak at you for the whole hour. So, just a quick mention of why. I'm sure almost everyone on this call understands the challenge we're facing here as a sector. So we are not going to go into this for 10 minutes. This is just to ground ourselves into why we are here, why we're sharing these insights, and why we've undertook this pilot program in the first place. So roughly 150 million solar products sold across sub-Saharan Africa to date. And the estimations are that about 75% of these have ceased to function. Now we're honing in really on repair for a few more additional reasons. And that is, firstly, there is a limited infrastructure for recycling, even though, of course, it does remain extremely important to address at the same time. But we also know from our customers that there is a vibrant rural repair economy across sub-Saharan Africa. And it's something that can be utilized and can be leveraged to tackle this problem. And it's not just in the interest of ourselves or the interest to reduce e-waste. Our customers themselves also see the value in this service. They may already be getting other electronic goods repaired through local established means. And we understand from speaking with them that there is the desire to do this still with non-functioning solar products. And one of the insights that we'll go into a little bit further into the webinar is that most of these products that are out there are in fact repairable, and they are in households. And this is one of the main outtakes that we'll be sharing today, is this is an opportunity, and we think we might have a couple of ideas of how we can address that opportunity. Before we do that, I would like to introduce everybody to our colleague at CLASP, Monica Wambui, who will be giving us 10 minutes insight into a sector perspective on repair and e-waste. Monica, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jamie, and hello, everyone. As Jamie mentioned, my name is Monica Wambui, and I work at CLASP, looking after our circularity work. I have very few slides, so I'm going to keep it to the 10 minutes. And as Jamie mentioned, the point of my presentation is really just to set the scene, sort of a landscape assessment of where we are at. And in doing this, I thought it would be interesting for us to revisit the Circularity Carnival that happened last year during the Gopla Off-Grid Solar Forum and Expo in Kigali, which is essentially a year ago. And just talk more what were some of the discussions that we had. It was a full day of discussions around circularity with companies introducing or talking about what they're doing just to inch their, not just the organizations, but their solutions towards more circularity, and also deep dive discussions on how can we enable more repair, more refurbishment, improved recycling, as well as the opportunity around battery innovations, as well as what does an enabling environment look like. And so essentially my presentation is going to be revisiting of that because it remains relevant and is hopefully going to spur further discussions, as Jamie has mentioned, that how do we push this forward with the lessons that we're going to be learning from the pilot? How do we engage with all the things that we already know to ensure that we are doing this well? So onto my first slide. When thinking about circularity, I will talk about it from these four sort of foundational pillars. So we have producer responsibility, knowledge exchange between adjacent sectors, circularity in displacement settings, as well as the catalytic impact of funding. And so when you're thinking about producer responsibility, it relates to all the activities that find application through a company, and could be on a voluntary basis or through policy and sort of regulated or required by regulation, so mandatory. And this includes take back and collection. And in that, you also have the awareness raising element. You have the opportunity for repair and refurbishment. And in thinking about that, you're looking at the training opportunities, both internally as well as externally. We're looking at innovative warranty services. How do we just expand the opportunity for repair and refurbishment in that? And then also important for repair is the data collection. How do we collect the faults that we are finding in the products to inform the product design? And then finally, we have also recycling, which also falls under producer responsibility. And then we also have knowledge exchange between adjacent sectors. And this links back to the Circularity Carnival. We had a presentation from GSMA, who basically represent the telecommunications sector. And this is also in acknowledgement that the electrical and electronic equipment in the off-grid sector are a very small percentage of the larger EE equipment. And so if we're going to think about circularity or better e-waste management, then we can't do it alone. We need to fit it into the larger sphere and talk about and collaborate, learn from other sectors and collaborate with those sectors. And then the third element around circularity and displacement sector, this is just looking at vulnerable communities where the need or the energy access need is still important, but then that in these setups, it's quite complex, right? So how do we ensure that in meeting the energy access need that we're doing it sustainably and that we are doing it holistically? So just looking at it wholesomely, and therefore also the opportunities for repair and refurbishment and better systems in those settings. And finally, we have the catalytic impact of funding. And for this one, I'll talk about it in 3 parts. We have funding that supports innovation. And this is an acknowledgement that circularity is constantly, it needs a lot, it requires a lot of innovation. And so funding that is geared towards innovation and prototyping, something similar to what, like for example, the Global Leap Solar E-Waste Challenge. And then there's also funding that looks at profitability, supporting, inching us towards profitability and sustainability. And in this case, I'm thinking about recycling, which we know, most of us on this call will know that recycling is expensive. And as Jamie mentioned, even the infrastructure is not available. So how does it look like to have funding that is directed towards that? And then finally, funding that impacts operations and policies. And in this case, I'm thinking how, for all the funding that would go into the different organizations, how does it look like for, in the midst of all the other requirements, that you have requirements towards circularity, towards repairability? The products that are introduced into the different markets need to tick a couple of boxes around circularity. On to the next slide. So this slide, as mentioned, I did mention that for the Circularity Carnival, we organized it alongside Gogla and DSS Plus, and we had this real cool graphic designer who just put our discussions into this visual, which makes it a lot easier to just translate. And it's essentially the same thing that I was saying in the previous slide, looking at the PRO elements. But I want to draw our attention to 3 elements. So you can see somewhere that you have the green procurement guidelines right below the e-waste in displacement settings sort of box. And this is just linking again to acknowledging the complexity. And therefore, if we're going to be introducing off-grid solar products into these settings, how do we have markers for circularity, for circular products to get into these markets to ensure that they are meeting the need and they are doing so sustainably? The other element I would like to draw our attention to is the development of minimum quality standards that's under the product repair. And this links to the quality assurance. Quality, it's repair is important, but then a thing that will always be discussed is how sure are we about how long this product will last, how will it perform? So how does it look like to extend existing quality assurance programs to include repairability criteria? And finally, just to emphasize the importance of product repair is the opportunity that it sort of creates for local manufacturing and assembly, so that we do not have to rely on more importation. How does it look like to just have full systems or full industry set up in the different countries that we are operating in? Next slide. So as mentioned in the second part of the Circularity Carnival, we had deep dive discussions talking about enhancing repair and refurbishment, amongst other topics. And this will talk more, so I won't talk too much about this because this is what is why we're here. But in thinking about repair and refurbishment, I want to highlight 3 things. Beginning with product design. We need, in thinking about circularity, we bring it's about taking the discussion back to the beginning. How are we designing the products? Is it for repairability? Is it for recyclability? What materials are we using? Are we using hazardous substances? Can we reduce that? Are we designing for durability? So all those T's that fit into circularity, we need to come back to that, and that fits into the repair and refurbishment discussion. And then there is also regulatory support. Are there regulations that support the such products in the country? Are there regulations that sort of support even the availability of spare parts, like extended producer regulations? Regulatory support is also vital. And then finally, we have skills and capacity building. And this, again, we will hear more, is actually why we're here again. But then how do we capacitate, how do we ensure that the repair and refurbishment that is being done to the highest level possible, and also acknowledging the opportunities that exist there, especially around improving economic welfare and the eventual circularity goal of just reducing the use of new resources for production. To the far right is an element that was discussed around centralized repair and refurbishment. And this sort of links to the whole standardization discussion. You'll find that products are most times will be designed very customized as per the different maybe organizations, but how does it look like to standardize products so that we are able to sort of create shared resources that advance the requirement discussion? Next slide. And so closing it out is the enabling environment for circularity. And so you'll see in this slide, we have three key stakeholders that we identify as important in building this enabling environment. We have industry, we have international partners, and then we have the government. And so for industry, it's really looking at how can they contribute to responsible design and operations, integrating policies that support circularity, as well as voluntary adoption of the EPR, extended producer responsibility, and not having to wait for regulations. And this, I think we can see even like in Kenya with the PEPFAR efforts. And then we have the international partners, and key here is responsible funding, which just again links to more requirements in the midst of all the other requirements that come with funding, including requirements for better products that support repairability or that are linked to repairability. And at the same time, when you're thinking about international partners, is the need for coordination for scale. We acknowledge that there are multiple efforts that will be integrated, that will be rolled out to support circularity and e-waste. How does it look like for all of these efforts to come together so that we are taking bigger steps than the smaller steps that we take individually? And then within the international partners, you can see the transition where we have the need for awareness raising, where you're putting in ideas, the good practices, the insights, and outcoming with the awareness raising, the advocacy, as well as just making more attention to the efforts that are being made, as well as the creation of this toolbox. And so I think a lot sort of in this graphic is anchored on the partners, but then it is acknowledging that this process, it's very continuous, where there is the whole testing, there's a refining, and then there's a finalization. So there is need for that flexibility and acknowledgement that it's very progressive. And then finally, we have the government, and there maybe I can highlight just the transboundary movement of e-waste, where you have the international regulations and conventions, regional and national. How do they all come into play? And also, how can they be optimized to support circularity? This could be more complex, but then there is opportunity. I think we've had this, especially when you're thinking about like second life batteries. How does that movement look like? So the integration of policies. But in summing up what the enabling environment is, I will just talk about it through 5 pillars. We have the social pillar, the innovation pillar, the financing pillar, the physical pillar, and finally the policy pillar. And so in closing out my presentation, what should be the priorities for the sector? We have expanded approach to EPR, which means that we could include eco-design, repair, and encouraging voluntary engagement, innovative funding mechanisms which expand and scale existing innovations and demonstrate new ones, and finally joint action and collaboration to resolve bottlenecks and optimize opportunities. Thank you, Jamie. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Monica. Fantastic scene setting for us, and we will move straight on. As Sharice said in the chat, any questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them in the last 15 minutes. But without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Fred Mwale, Program Manager, who's done an incredible job leading this project for SolarAid. So Fred, over to you.
Thank you, Jamie. So my name is Fred. I am the programs manager here in Zambia, and I'll be walking you through what we did on the project over the last 2 years, just to give you a bit more understanding of what's been happening on the ground. Next slide, please, Jamie. Thank you. So I'll start with talking about the objectives that we had for the project, and this pretty much framed what we did in this project. But before I speak on those, I should mention that this was another phase of our repair efforts in Zambia. From about 2020, we worked with CLASP on what we're calling the Take Back initiative, where we would exchange solar lanterns and offer a discount to customers for purchasing a new light. And what we learned from that project is what we are now doing here, and that's what framed our objectives. So the first objective was to testing the repair of solar energy kits. And this mainly came out from understanding that customers were more willing to have their products repaired as opposed to give them away. In some cases, they would keep the solar energy kits in their homes. So in this, what we're basically doing is proactively going out, meeting with our customers, and also speaking to them to understand more the feasibility, the volume, and the opinion of repairing products. And I'll speak on that a bit later. Secondly, we're testing localized approaches to repair. For a country as large as Zambia, it's very difficult to have a pretty much central location where all the energy kits can be brought to one place. So what we did is take these approaches for repair or centers to where the customers are. And what we're trying to learn here is the viability of these repair services with third-party technicians and with product distributors, which are us in some cases. And thirdly, it's exploring the barriers. What barriers are there to repair in Zambia and for the sector? Could it be barriers in terms of limitation in infrastructure and policy? And these are some of the things that guided us into what exactly we did, which I'm about to talk about. Jamie, next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of activities, and these came out of our objectives, the first activity that we embarked on was to select who we're going to work with. So we selected 5 third-party repair technicians, and these, I'll categorize them as specialized people who have some background in electrical repair. And as well, we did select and train 15 sales agents. These are sales agents who have previously worked with SolarAid here in Zambia, have a lot of influence in the communities, and are well trusted by customers. So what we did with the technicians and sales agents is we built their capacity by offering them training into how to repair solar energy kits. We also improved their capacity on what is needed in terms of provision of tools. As you know, some of the energy kits require specific tools, and training is needed on how to use those tools. And thirdly, we also sourced for spare parts. Now, spare parts are a critical component, of course, for repair. We do need spare parts to repair. And what we did source internationally were batteries and circuit boards for some of the most common solar energy kits that we have and that customers told us they have. And speaking of customers, the second activity that we embarked on was the repair itself. So we did this mainly through what we called repair community repair days. And in the repair days, it's essentially us calling on customers to come to a central location, which in this case was different community schools, where customers would bring their lights for repair, and they would be in touch and speak to our repair technicians, and in some cases the sales agents. And this is where the actual repair would happen. So we'd have customers come in with broken lights that they've had for the past 3, 4, 5 years, and give a new life because of the knowledge and the skill and expertise we give to the repair technicians and the sales agents. And it was quite interesting in that this sort of formed the interaction between us, the customers, and the repair technicians. We got to learn so much. And in this period, we repaired about 1,094 products that you can see there. And this was just in this particular phase. And what was interesting in this is that we were able to see that customers really do have a lot of energy kits that they're keeping around, or in some cases, others would unfortunately say that they discarded them if you ask them how they discarded them. it wasn't in the most safe ways. And the repair days also allowed us to have an evidence base for some of the common faults that different solar energy kits have, because it is with these results or evidence rather, that we're able to know what kind of spare parts are needed. Do we need to get any more spare parts? What kind of repair methods are needed to be taught to the third-party technicians and the sales agents as well. And another thing that we did, of course, was surveys. Prior to starting the repair days, we did speak to a different set of individuals. These included the solar energy kit customers, just to understand their thoughts on repair, their willingness on repair as well, to get also their willingness and what they are willing to pay to have their lights repaired. Second, we also did speak to the repair technicians, who are the third-party technicians, just to understand what some of the challenges would be in accessing spare parts and accessing the right tools for repair. We also did speak to a technical school. So this is called SolarAid Technical School. And we spoke to the students to understand their perceptions on repair, what they know about repair in terms of solar energy kits, so that we're also trying to cover what, on an industry basis, what knowledge is out there in terms of repair for solar energy kits, because it is also important that as much as we are working with third-party technicians and sales agents, that we have a group of individuals who are sort of more in the professional and formal field to be able to teach some of these methods of repair. Next slide, please, Jamie. And the biggest challenge I would say that we overcame was the knowledge. So it was quite critical that we taught every stakeholder in this what kind of methods are needed to repair different solar lights. And what we used was what we're calling our SunnyMoney Pico Solar Repair Guide. This is an app that you can find in the Google Play Store. So if you can please search the Google Play Store and have a look at it. It basically has a lot of information on different lights. And remember, I did mention that a lot of the repair methods that we learned rather came from the different surveys that we spoke to with customers, with repair technicians, so that they informed us of what exactly they're facing in terms of challenges in the different communities. So the app will show you diagnostics and repair guidance for multiple products. You find different products there. You find home systems, different solar lanterns. And we're proud to say that the app so far has been downloaded 11,000 times. That is quite a big number for us, and we're very positive about that. Our repair technicians also did tell us that the app was really good. It helped them in overcoming different challenges with different lights that customers would bring to them. And what we're also now hoping for the future is that this app can be used across the continent for even more products. We're also thinking of adding a lot more productive use products, because those are becoming quite popular now in the industry, and really hope that we can be able to leverage what we've done so far for the industry. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sorry,
thank you. No.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Fred. We will now move on to the juicy stuff, the results, with Paul Monroe, our partner from University of New South Wales. Paul, over to you.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Fred and Monica, for kind of setting the context for the results here. I'm just going to provide a very high-level overview of the results. Obviously, you can jump into the white paper, which will have more detail about what we got from this research project. You're also more than welcome to contact me if you have any other further questions. And I also see that there's a lot of questions popping up in the chat, which is great. We're going to circle back to those at the end and answer them, but feel free to keep popping in questions there. We will get around to answering all of them. Next slide, please, Jamie. So I guess just as a starting point in terms of the results, or in terms of understanding what is happening with solar, e-waste and repair. Really, we wanted to kind of acknowledge that there's been a lot of existing work in recent years in this space, which is quite exciting that it is actually a area of important conversation within the sector. And so really as a part of this project was to do a kind of a long review of all the different kind of existing reports and different publications around waste to work out kind of what themes or what issues we can build upon. And this image is just a small selection of what has been written in the last 3 or 4 years. And so the report kind of summarizes the broader themes from this existing work, but I guess a couple of key things to kind of take home from them is that there's a lot of desire within the sector to do something about solar waste. And there's lots of small initiatives and different experiments going on, but still addressing the issue of solar waste is still largely aspirational. And that's because there's still a whole lot of risks, a whole lot of unknowns, a whole lot of structural challenges that kind of prevent that conversion from desire to acting. And so really, if we can kind of get through or address these different issues, then there can be a lot more expansion in terms of what we do in terms of repairing solar products and reducing waste. And as another kind of theme that emerged across a lot of this literature was, as Jamie mentioned earlier, is that while recycling has an important place to play, it really is repair where the key area can be to improve sustainability in the sector. It's a much smaller kind of circularity when you do repair, extending the life of products. And then the final point that's observed in a lot of existing studies and what we found through this study is that there is really a vibrant repair economy in Africa. So we really have something that we can build upon. We're not necessarily trying to invent something completely new, but there's actually existing things on the ground that we can work with to get greater off-grid solar repair. Next slide, Jimmy. So this slide is just to set a bit of context of what happens when a household has a solar product that ceases to function. And usually the first step for the household is to try and repair the solar product themselves. If they're unable to do that, there's usually 4 main options that they will kind of encounter or go into in terms of trying to fix their solar product. The first one usually is to take the product back to the supplier. And this is in particular if it's under warranty. So there's often a warranty for the first couple of years of a product. They can kind of take it back and get it repaired or replaced as a part of that warranty. And really that's kind of an important distinction between kind of products within warranty and post-warranty products, because often there's different avenues that households would choose depending on what kind of section of that time they're in. Another option is, as Fred mentioned, disposal, so just throwing away the product quite simply, usually by informal means. A third option is to find an independent repairer, usually someone locally that specializes in electronic repair and might do solar repair as well. And then the fourth one, and actually the most common one, is actually hibernation. So if a product stops working, people just put it away in storage, under beds, in shelves, stored away somewhere in the hope that maybe one day in the future it can be repaired, or at the very least they see that the product still has some kind of value or potential value to them. And I think really in terms of doing repair in the sector, it's really important to understand the dynamics of these different options in households and how they might shift or how we might shift them in different ways to improve repairability. So it's really important to understand, what are the decisions at the household level for us to kind of move in and kind of promote a greater repair economy. So here are just some very broad observations, which I think kind of really important to highlight out that we had during the white paper. So one, as Fred mentioned early on, is really kind of the dynamics or decisions around informal third-party repair or more formalized in-house repair run by off-grid solar companies themselves. And there's a whole range of kind of strengths and weaknesses towards the different approaches. A lot of off-grid companies like to control the repair themselves in terms of their products due to the internal components, due to warranty reasons. But definitely kind of the more informal third-party repair has a much more geographical spread. There's a lot of kind of, setups in small towns and different rural areas. And so it's kind of understanding, how we work with these two kind of sectors of repair or how they operate together. And I think really probably both need to be kind of an important part of the story in terms of addressing repair and addressing waste within the off-grid solar sector. And so another thing when talking to these repairers, both within agents within the sector as well as third-party informal repairers, we kind of got a sense of what are the kind of key challenges that prevents them doing more repair or realizing the repair to their fullest ability. And so a big issue that came up in talking to repairers was really just a lack of spare parts for solar objects. And so sometimes they had to kind of repurpose different wires or different components from other electronic devices like radios or from televisions, but sometimes they were just unable to. They just did not have the spare parts. And really a big gap for a lot of repairers they found during the years of doing repair was kind of a lack of the right batteries to be able to use. And that was often kind of a big kind of barrier to doing it. And kind of related to that as well was a lack of availability of the right tools to be able to do repair. The specific kind of tools that are needed to open up or kind of work with components. And to do kind of repairs both effectively as well as safety, is kind of a big issue in that space. And a third thing that they really noticed a lot of these repairers was they had a very wide range spectrum in terms of how easy solar products were to repair. Some brands or some models within brands were much more easy or straightforward to repair than others. Some were welded shut, some had difficult screws to open up, some had sealed in components that made them really hard. And there's a whole reason why manufacturers might choose to have sort of these different kind of design issues, but some were just not really well designed for repairability. And that might be due to wanting for durability, that might be to wanting to prepare warranty, it might be wanting to protect kind of internal components for fintech software. But in the broad sense, often for a lot of these projects, we could see that repairability was really kind of a secondary option. And so really there was, the repairers themselves really kind of had a ranking in their mind of what they thought was good to repair and what they thought was probably not worth their time to repair because it'd just be too difficult or any attempt to try and repair the products could render them broken. And a kind of a issue that we had with the project was actually identifying women technicians. So it's a very male-dominated technician field out particularly in rural areas with the third-party technicians. And so that was kind of a real kind of gap. And it's often the case that actually women are the main users of household solar products in their household. But throughout the project, we'll only be able to get agents in-house in terms of female technicians working in repair. And then now down to the households. There's a quick couple of snapshot statistics that we got from the baseline and the end line survey in terms of what changed in the households in spaces where we did the repair days in Zambia. And you can see there's really two quite striking statistics there. So in terms of actually households having all their lights functioning in their household, in the baseline survey, only 30% of households, 1 in 3 households or even less, had their lights functioning. And after we stopped these repair days and created opportunities for people to bring forward and get their solar lights functioning, that increased up to 90%. So it's kind of a remarkable change through what was really kind of a moderate intervention, kind of setting up, some training and sort of kind of events in terms to get people out and repairing their solar products. We can also see another similar dramatic climb in terms of how households would consider repair technicians. So at the baseline, less than half of households would really consider using a repair technician to get their solar product working. And after kind of these repair days and information engagement, that climbed up to 85%. So what we really see with these two things, with the project, there was a material change in terms of, people's experience with their lighting products and getting them working. Perhaps, but even more critically, there's kind of a cultural change, with households thinking about repair or their right to repair or the repair of their products as they are operating. And so I just want to end on this slide. I just kind of guess 3 very broad take-home points that I really think important to take home from this study and from the white paper. And one thing that was quite striking is the solar abundance. So we talk about solar in households. Households have multiple products. I think 75% of the households we went to had at least 2 solar products, and 24% owned at least 5 solar products. So often households will kind of assemble bricolages of different solar products in the households. 1 light for 1 room, 1 solar panel charging phones in another room. So there's kind of a mix of different products that they have. So what this means is that there's a really big market out there for solar products in terms of need to be repaired, maintained, or replaced along the way, much bigger than just counting households or counting, number of customers. The second point to make that is really important is a lot of these broken down products were extremely easy to repair. There's a lot of repairable solar products out there sitting in households. And during this project, we're able to repair 91.3% of products. So the vast majority of products were repairable, and the vast majority of these ones that repaired were quite straightforward to repair in different ways. And in terms of actual cost to repair, on average, the repair costs were around 31% of replacement cost if they were to buy a new solar product. And then there's a broad spectrum ranging down from about 2% to 80% within that, but on average, or the medium, was around 31%. And then I guess the final one, I think this is kind of, a really kind of exciting point. Really these broken down products, they're waiting. They're not waste yet. So it's really maybe the term solar waste kind of actually is kind of a misnomer in terms. It's really kind of non-functioning solar products. So more than about 90% of households were actually hibernating their broken solar products. They were not throwing them out into waste. They were storing them in their house, hoping one day that they somehow could be reused or repurposed in some future date. So really there's a whole range of kind of broken down products out there that could be, through strategic interventions, kind of turned into functioning solar products again. Or at the very least, if they cannot be, they might even be able to be harvested for spare parts to repair other solar products. And that's me. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Paul. So we did promise you questions. So I am just going to make my final section shorter than planned, which is recommendations from our white paper. And we have 6 main recommendations. I'm not going to go through all of these. The white paper is there, but also most of these have been mentioned either by Monica, by Fred, or by Paul already. So what I really want to hone in on is what SolarAid is planning to do next. We have a great ability to be able to test, to be able to pilot. As Paul said just a moment ago, us looking at the evidence, engaging with stakeholders on what's happening with repair at the moment is largely aspirational. Well, we want to do and we want to test these models. So the 3 areas that we will be pushing forward into in this next phase is firstly testing the economic viability of the 2 local repair models. It's great and phenomenal the results we've seen that most products remain in households. Most of them are repairable. But we need a working model. We need to show that there is a business benefit, that the numbers can balance, and that it is a net positive for not just SolarAid, but other organizations, other distributors in this sector to be able to take this model on. Because yes, we all want to do things for public good, but if we're for-profit organizations, it can be difficult if the numbers don't stack up. So that's what we will be focusing in on. After that, it will be to push the repair guide forward. Very related to the first point there, but there is an opportunity for this to scale faster, and also with many of our partners who could be on this call as well. There's an opportunity to grow the geographical reach, to grow the product range. So we want to engage with you as much as possible to see what we can do here. And then thirdly, we've already had a lot of people reach out to us with the white paper. So the conversations we're having is fantastic. With the role that we can play in testing and piloting and the evidence that we're gathering from across rural sub-Saharan Africa, Zambia so far, there is an opportunity for us to collaborate here. So the call to action from us, then we'll get to questions, is firstly, technical assistance. And what we mean by that is not your traditional come and help us with this project. It's what do you want to learn? You've seen the evidence we've got so far. We've just mentioned what we want to do next. How can we build this together to answer some of the great unanswered questions that we're facing right now? Because this is a complex issue that will take all of us to solve. And if you're testing repair models, localized repair models, or otherwise, or you're wanting to test in new geographies, let's chat. We want these models to be tested more than just in Zambia. So can you partner with us to do that? And the third thing is funding. You know, we're a charity. We're testing these models to hopefully achieve exponential scale of tackling this repair challenge or this opportunity. So we need money to be able to do that. So that is the shameless last ask here. But really, the main message we want to send is this is something that we can do together. Like I say, the response has been fantastic, but there'll be many more people that we can collaborate with, contribute to some of the amazing sector advocacy policy work that's going on, and push forward a potential model to actually repair products that are out there and repairable. So that's the end of our presentation. Here's our contact details. So Jamie, Fred, Paul, Monica. This is the start. This is purely just a stopgap webinar for us to push forward and push forward with our colleagues in the off-grid energy sector. So we will go for 10 minutes of questions. I've seen a lot of them come through. So we will do our best to answer some of them. Let me just get them up here. But this is just the start of the conversation. So anything we can't get to, email us. We can absolutely chat following this. So, well, there is a lot. There's definitely more than 10 minutes. Let me pick just from the top. So what are the main accessories in a solar lantern that may require repairs? And I have seen a few, we might be able to tick off a few here. So I guess we're asking what are the most common faults? What fails? And we do have that in detail in our white paper, but Paul or Chanel? Chanel has joined us also from the University of New South Wales, Carla from SolarAid Zambia. So we have a dream team here. Paul and Chanel, do you want to just mention some of the common faults that we found?
Sure thing. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Hello, everyone. Yeah, in terms of common faults, I think the vast majority, plus over 70%, were down to the batteries on when it came to solar lanterns. And I think number 2 and number 3 are switches and PCBs, respectively. But overwhelmingly, the repairs tended to involve battery replacements.
Fantastic. Let me just get another. Yeah, let's get this one then. Availability of spare parts and repairability are manufacturer/producer issues. Are industry reps having the conversation with manufacturers on these issues? I think the question that's very, very important. Fred highlighted the major challenge we have here. I think this is something that we will be and already are engaging with our colleagues in the sector on. But we had a lot of direct experiences during this project of working with manufacturers. So Fred, is there anything from our project specifically you would mention? And Monica, from a sector perspective, what would you say about the conversations with manufacturers around the availability of spare parts and the repairability of products? So Fred, let's start with you from the SolarAid experience.
Sure, thanks, Jamie. It's been quite an interesting time speaking with different producers and manufacturers. I think they're now warming up to the idea of making spare parts much more available. And I think the key thing as well is the cost of the spare parts. And in this case, majority, like Chanel mentioned, battery faults. So, because the battery cost directly affects how much the consumer pays a repair technician to have the energy kit repaired. So they are now warming up to the idea. A lot more still needs to happen, and that's something that we'll definitely be doing over the next course of our repair journey. Yeah.
Thank you. And Monica.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I'll pick up from a phrase that Fred used, the warming up. Because I think, and as it has been acknowledged in some of the questions, that a lot of the products coming are import-based, and most times that there's this really huge gap between the products coming in and the owners here and the manufacturers, and how do you relay that information? Maintaining that line of communication has been, I think, difficult, and so creating those constant lines of communication where you're able to reach the manufacturer and convey these challenges that you're facing with the products, so that then they are able to make is it tweaks, or is it even in making available these spare parts that are good quality spare parts. And then I feel like I could go round and round in this, because then it also links to how the product is designed, right? If you're designing products for just a pilot for a phase and then they're out, the manufacturer won't come back and be like, oh, we want spare parts for a product that was released 2 years ago, right? So which is a larger discussion. But then I like what Fred is saying, that there's a warming up that is happening and that needs to continue. But then also that repairability, then it brings us closer, gets us thinking about the local assembly, right, and local manufacturer opportunity, so that we do not have to rely on shipment and the supply chain issues that come with the shipment issues. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Monica. And we had a lot of manufacturers sign up to this webinar as well, which is fantastic. And we worked a lot with some of our key colleagues for this project, and we will certainly make it a priority to do that moving forward as well. Let's got 6 minutes. Let's deal with a couple more. I want to bring Carla in here, the operations director for the SolarAid in Zambia. Carla, I've lost the question now. Sorry, there's so many. What do you do with the irreparable? How do you manage waste? And then I will follow up with a point after you here.
Hi, sorry, I was unable to unmute myself. Sorry, Jamie, can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely. What do you do with the irreparable? So the products we can't fix, what do we do with them, and how do we manage that waste?
Okay, so we actually, when we're unable to repair it, we do give the option back to the client. And some of them actually want them back to keep them in their homes, whether it's if they think they're going to be able to find somebody who can repair in the future, or if it's just for them to have. We found that that's very popular and common to happen. It is very rare. I think, we talked about the percentage that wasn't able to be repaired. I know that there's a question that maybe I can address as well at the same time of who pays for the repair. So if a light's within warranty, then we have conditions with our manufacturers that we replace the light without repairing. However, if the lights are outside of warranty, if we're able to fix it, or if our technicians are able to fix it, we do give them a cost of what the repair would be. And that is very minimal, like we discussed, on whether it's the battery, the PCB, or what the problem is. Sometimes the repairs are extremely cheap if it doesn't have to do with the battery, and it's really just, a cable or something that needs to be welded. But if it is with the battery, we do have a small charge to the end user, but we always give them the option of, do they want to repair it or not? We do have one recycling plant in Lusaka, so if people give us lights back, we do try to refurbish as much as possible, get different parts that we can use later for repair. The things that we're unable to use at all is we do use the panels again, if possible, but for things that we cannot refurbish or have nothing to do with them, we do have a agreement with a recycling plant here in Lusaka that we're able to give to them, and then they dispose properly.
Thank you, Carla. And I'll just follow on from that with a point we discussed throughout this webinar, which is the infrastructure for recycling is challenging. So I think Paul and Fred both made the point is we've really been focusing in on repair to challenge this e-waste, or as Paul said, the amount of hibernating products out there. We're finding where we can have the most impact with our last mile distribution expertise, with our work in rural areas. So this is a sector complex issue for us to challenge, and we're honing in on where we believe we can have a significant impact, and that is testing the localized repair models that we've discussed. And there's a question here, is there a sufficient skill base in Zambia to understand and repair the electronics? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. There is this vibrant repair economy across rural Zambia. We have equipped the existing technicians or even sales agents with limited knowledge in repair with the app, with tools and components on how to repair. And we've seen the results that 91% of these products can be repaired. And in local areas where we're reducing the cost, reducing the complexity of the supply chain, we're reducing the time of repair. So this is something where disposing of the products at the moment can be difficult, but perhaps there is a different way. Perhaps there is an opportunity to tackle this issue with repair and with localized repair. And that's why we are sharing our results now and calling on our partners in the sector to join us here and take this to a next step. More tests, more research, more funding, and partnering to solve this challenge together. So we have less than a minute to go. So I think we will end there. I'm sorry if your answer was not Your question, sorry, was not answered. Like we say, we'll follow up with a recording. Contact details will be there. We have some meetings set up with fantastic partners already. But if you do want to chat, let us chat, because we really want to have this something that is useful for all of us, not just for us to have ourselves. And so on behalf of SolarAid, the University of New South Wales, thank you, Paul, thank you, Chanel. Monica, on behalf of CLASP, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure that you were all